Hey everyone, how you doing? This is Amon Green, Gourmet Packers all-time leading rusher, and you're watching Packers Total Access Live, your daily source for Packer content. Go Pack, go!
What's up, guys? Welcome into Good Morning Lambeau. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on packernet.com. Find me on Twitter at Packers_access. You can email us, PackersTotalAccess@gmail.com. You can text us 865-658-5824. Join alongside Tim in Green Bay here to talk some Packers as it's officially playoff season, as we got one more week of regular season left. And obviously, we're going to step right into the playoffs.
Playoffs?
Packers are going to be playing in the first round. So we are officially, in my opinion, in playoff season. Tim, how you doing this morning, big dog?
Great, man. Happy to be here. It's nice to be a week out from the playoffs and know that you're in, right?
It's pretty cool. That was the whole purpose. So let's just go ahead and shift gears here, just to remind everyone who's complaining that the team sucks and we're horrible. And, well, you know, we're gonna talk about it all today. But yeah, it's nice, man. 3 weeks left in the season? Pretty much you knew there was a 99% chance you're making the playoffs. Pretty damn good year, in my opinion. But let's do this, man. Let's get things cranked up again. All right, well, Tim, we'll just kind of lead the show off with the breaking news here. Kind of cool. Listen, this isn't huge. You guys know I don't put a whole lot of stock in the Pro Bowl, but again, it's awesome to see. Wes Hawkowitz says safety Xavier McKinney, running back Josh Jacobs, and defensive end Rashawn Gary have been selected to the 2025 Pro Bowl games on initial balloting. 7 other Packers players voted alternates. Third Pro Bowl selection for Jacobs, who was in 2020 and 2022. It's funny, when we sign him, it's like, well, we get the 2022 version or the 2023 version of Josh Jacobs. Obviously, we got the 22. And first for both McKinney and Gary. So isn't it funny that all year long people have bashed the hell out of Rashawn Gary? And again, Pro Bowl is not like this big, oh, look, see, he's really good. It's just hilarious. He's never gotten it before. And the year that people were upset about his production, he makes Pro Bowl. That just cracked me up, Tim. But I think it's cool to see some representation here. And listen, it's good for the resume, too, for Jeff Hafley having 2 Pro Bowlers on his defense, right?
Absolutely. And, like you're saying, to the point about Rashawn, it's like we've clearly asked him to do some different things this year with his game. We talked about him being more of a run stopper and really utilized against the run more and not just strictly a pass rusher. And I get why, some people may think that, he's having a down year. I don't personally understand why you would think that, but I can see how you could see it because he's not teeing off and rushing the quarterback all the time like we've seen in the past. And he's doing some other things on that D line. So I'm extremely happy for Rashawn and Xavier McKinney. And you're right, Jeff Hafley having 2 guys, his first year as a DC, you got 2 Pro Bowlers on your defense. That's great for the resume. It's a great point, Clayton. And Josh Jacobs, of course, nobody should be surprised that guy's a Pro Bowler because he's an absolute dog.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. And again, with Rashawn Gary, hopefully if you followed along with the show this year, we've mentioned several times, his run defense has been phenomenal. And it was cool that last week Eli Berkovitz on Twitter put a tweet out about it. Because I'm like, okay, it's nice to know, to quote Zoolander, I'm not taking crazy pills over here because I'm watching the tape and it's like, it seems like every run stop we get, Gary's in on that play. And you could tell there was emphasis put on that aspect of this new defense coming in. It all starts with stopping the run, right? And again, he leads the team in pressures. He leads the team in run stops, which are basically, running plays of like 3 yards or less where he's the tackler. So he's had a great year, in my opinion. Is it still a down year? I would say if someone says Gary's having a down year, I agree with that. I do. Because when you pay someone top money, with the overall contract, you do expect to get, production that's like, hey, he should be there in the top 3 in sacks, right? You would think that, theoretically speaking. But that's not how defense works in 2024 and now going into 2025. It's not just about, okay, guys, you're an edge defender. Your only job is to sack the quarterback. It's changed so much over the years that, especially with the run stunting we try to do with the 4-man rush, it just kind of goes without saying, I guess. But, again, shout out to Josh Jacobs, Xavier McKinney, and Rashawn Gary making the initial one. Now, here's what typically happens, Tim. Typically, some of these players will drop out of that, and some of the alternates will get put in, right? Like there was one year that Mac Jones made the Pro Bowl because like 4 guys ahead of him decided to drop out. But now they're doing these Pro Bowl games, which I kind of like, me personally. The Pro Bowl got it was just ridiculous. It was not a football game anymore. So I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, you remember the quarterback competition they used to have?
Oh,
Tim?
yeah.
To me, that's what this is. And I used to love that stuff. I remember us being pretty for lack of a better way of putting it. And I would
just you couldn't afford the OR.
Exactly. I would put obstacles in the yard next to my mom and dad's house. Keep in mind, there's only like 20 feet between our house and the house next to us because it's an old coal mining camp top town, right? And I would put like a bucket, one of dad's motorcycle helmets, a garbage can, and then at the end of it, I had a box. So I had to run through the obstacle course and hit the box at the end, throwing the football. It's funny what you did to
keep yourself entertained. I love it.
But anyway, so I kind of like that whole quarterback challenge thing, and that's what these feel like. I think this could be something big for the NFL, the Pro Bowl games. I think it's kind of cool. So again, shout out Josh Jacobs, Xavier McKinney, Rashawn Gary for making the Pro Bowl. Let's go to the chat here really quick and just see what we got in here. Everybody following in. Appreciate y'all making us part of your morning. If you could, hit that like button on your way in. We got Raider McCreary. Good to see you. Josh Vallantingham, new member here on YouTube. I know everybody, if you're like me, I don't like to have auto subscribe on anything. I want to know, all right, yeah, I will purchase that this month. So Josh Vallantingham re-upping his YouTube membership. Appreciate you, buddy. Raider McCready, good morning, PTA Posse. Good to see you, buddy. We got Anthony in the house. We've got, let's see here, Chris in here. Good to see you, buddy. He says, back to work today. Need to sneak into the supplies room to watch PTA. Go, Pack, go. Chris, you can do that. Just understand, we are not liable to compensate you for the lack of funds once you get fired. Okay, sir. We just need to be on the same page there. All right. No, don't want to mislead anybody here. We got Michael Herman in the chat. Good to see you, pal. Holmes MD1, Mike Berry, everybody following in. Nick McSwain. What's up, Nick? Good to see you, man. Let's see here. Nick McSwain says, good morning, PTA. I like our wide receiver room, but my biggest issue is the drops. They're good, but drops make them inconsistent. Yeah, and I haven't looked at the drops as like a huge deal. We need to go look and see exactly where they rank in the league. Of course, maybe I'm still shell-shocked from 2022, Aaron Rodgers' last year, when we led the entire league in receiver drops, right? But Tucker Kraft, to me, is sure-handed. Everybody all of a sudden thinks that Jaden Reed has a drops issue. We showed you the passer rating when targeted last night. He's second in the NFL, only behind, Terry McLaurin. So, does it suck when the receiver drops a pass? And what is a drop? There's some fans that say if it hits his hands, that's a drop, right? I don't see it that way. If there's a ball that's off target, and like what happened on Sunday, Jaden Reed had to lay out full extension, it hits his hands, he drops it. I don't put that on Jaden Reed. I put it more on the quarterback in that specific situation. And then when you put on the quarterback, you got to look at the tape and go, okay, was he leading them out of trouble? Was he trying to protect his receiver? There's a lot of things that come into play there for sure. But as far as the inconsistency, I think that's a fair assessment. Don't you, Tim? They've shown huge flashes. They can be a top receiving core. I think they're still the cheapest, if not the second cheapest receiving room in the entire league. But they could definitely be more consistent. I agree with that.
Yeah, you want to see guys, make those steps to where you're more reliable and consistent, especially, we talked about Wicks having some drop issues. I think he's one of the guys that's kind of turned it around lately and is becoming more reliable as a pass catcher. And we know he runs good routes. Same thing with Reed. And we know Rome's sure-handed, but even Rome had a drop the last game as well. So it is an issue at times because, like Coach Len is saying here, the drops always seem to be at the worst time possible. Always. But I agree with your sentiment, Clayton, that, not every ball that hits the receiver in the hand, is a drop. Sometimes the DB plays defense, and punches a ball out or things like that. What you want to avoid are the ones that hit you right on the numbers, right in stride, and you're not coming up with that. That's a drop for sure. But laid out, diving out, a ball too far in front of you, one behind you on your hip, down at your ankles, and you don't make that catch, it's really hard to be tough on a receiver in those situations. Yeah,
no, it really is, man. There's no doubt about it. And let's see, the other thing too is like with the coverage. Everybody all of a sudden thinks our coverage is horrible. I'll put a tweet out and we'll hit it here in a minute. I think we're still third in EPA allowed per drop back. So we're like towards the top. We uncovered the other day, like, hey, if there was a weak spot, it's the pass defense. It doesn't mean the pass defense is bad, though, right? And do you want to look at EPA? Do you want to look at PFF grades? Do you want to look at passer rating when targeted? All those things. Hopefully you've caught on this show.
We don't like to cherry pick just to prove the point, right?
We like to throw everything into the whole basket and go, okay, let's look at it from all angles. At least we try to. We're definitely not perfect. But, yeah, I agree with what Coach said. And Ron Samuel comes in and says they are fourth most drops with 32. So, again, that's got to get cleaned up. No doubt about it, Ron. No doubt about it. Let's see what else we got in here real quick before we Watson, remember Watson's drop this season really bad. Yeah, and the thing about that, too, was, like, that was his first drop of the year. Everybody went crazy. Like, this guy going to get your football. It's like, well, that was his first drop of the year. Yeah. He might be the most sure-handed receiver on our team.
But again, like Coach Len just said, the worst possible time, right? Yeah. You're streaking down the field. You got your man beat dead to rights. That ball's right there. That's terrible. Yeah, that was frustrating.
Yeah. Now here's what I'm talking about too. We got two different conflicting reports. It was Nick McSwain says they're fifth in drops. And that's what I'm saying. Like, you can different sites, obviously they're looking at the same plays coming up with a little bit different result. But he says Jaden Reed has 11% drop rate this year. Wicks has 13%. That's according to Fox Sports. Dobbs has 8%, and Packers are fifth. Notice that Watson was not mentioned right there, right? So I imagine he's probably lower than all those guys, I would think. But maybe he's not. But, yeah, Dobbs is that's the other thing too. Like, Dobbs is definitely our best man coverage receiver. And Jaden Reed and Tucker Kraft are our best zone receivers. So it's kind of like, and when you look at Watson, if I remember correctly, you don't see Watson stand out in either. He's just kind of Watson no matter what the coverage is. But Dobby is definitely that dude that when a team's going to play two-man under like the Vikings did, you just want to kind of lock on him and go and work him in space. And listen, that's going to catch heat from a certain portion of the fan base. That's why Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams did what they did. Back when Tay really took off, teams were trying to play two-man under on Aaron because when they would blitz, he'd burn them. When they play zone, he'd find the soft spot. So when they play two-man under, it's just let's just go ISO game with Devontae. If you try to play man-up coverage on Devontae Adams, he's going to cook you, right? Yeah. So that's why Aaron started locking onto him so much. In my opinion, it got too out of hand on the backside because it was just like, forget what everybody else is doing. Tay, run whatever route you want to run, and I'll throw a dart to you. That's basically how
Tay down there somewhere.
Exactly. So, but appreciate you guys looking up the stats there, both Ron and Nick in the chat. Y'all are awesome, man. Here we go. Ron Samuel, Watson 3 drops in 2 years. His are always memorable. That's it. Wow.
That's what it is. That's such a great point.
He's only got 3 drops in 2 years. That can't be right, Ron? That's crazy if it's true. But again, his first pass of his career, right, Tim?
Yeah.
Drop. Right,
I swear, Christian Watson's going to have to catch the game-winning tutter in the Super Bowl to get people to forget about Week 1 against the Vikings in his rookie year. The one he wants back. It's like, God, it's like 3 years ago.
Yeah, no doubt, man. All right, let's see here. Rail in the chat says, finally subscribe to the PTA Patreon membership. I appreciate you joining the Patreon group, Rail. I try to keep things going over there. It's a little bit difficult because I'm always producing the show, trying to create the show. And sometimes I need to get in the Patreon group and be a little more interactive. But I appreciate you guys joining over there. It's awesome. We did have something that came through. If I could find it here real quick, I want to give a shout out to someone because it was a very nice comment. Paula here. Paula's a new member of their Patreon group, and she said, this is just you notice this is a general chat. We got several chats in there. We got questions for the show. We'll hit those here in a second. But Paula Sheridan says, Happy New Year. I'm new to the PTA Patreon group, but I just wanted to say how much I've enjoyed the PTA podcast this year. Even after a tough loss, y'all explain what happened in a clear, easy to understand, and often humorous way. What's funny is we're not trying to be humorous. We're just a bunch of knuckleheads without excessively dragging Packers players. That's huge. I really appreciate that. Many thanks to Clayton, Tim, Josh, Emilio, and Carly, as well as the people in the chat. You all make a great team and help fans to really enjoy watching our team go back go. So, hey, thank you for the kind words. That's probably the best compliment you can get there, Tim. That's the goal. Tim, what do I say before we go live after a loss for the post-game show every time, man? What do I try to say to everybody?
let's be upbeat. Let's be positive. Let's try and figure out what happened together. And that's basically in a nutshell, right? Let's look at this as objectively as possible, even though our hearts are killing us after a tough loss, right? Because we're just as emotional as anyone else in the film. We always talk about emotional fans, right? I mean, I'm just as guilty. I know you are. So is Jacob. So is Emilio. We love this team, right? You don't want to see your team losing, but you got to screw your head on straight and start looking at it objectively. And you find a little bit of calm and peace in that once you figure out what the heck actually happened out there, right, Clay?
Yeah. And again, it's when you lean on each other for that, and it's like, all right, the whole purpose is when we go live for a post-game show after a loss, it's like, listen, everybody that's watching this show that's a Packers fan is going to be hurting right now. Let's don't add to that, please. Let's don't create an environment where it's just like the sky's falling. Let's all be toxic. Let's all be toxic together. I can't stand it. I won't name any names, but there's several podcasts, several shows that I used to watch. And I'm just like, I can't do it anymore because they cater to that, right? And I'll turn them on occasionally and this and that. But when you're fanning that flame, where it's just what happens is you might have a reasonable take on, hey, this team is really bad at this point right now. This sucks. And then the next guy comes in and he's further from the truth, further from the truth, further from the truth. Next thing you know, you just got people calling in, texting in, messaging in, just cussing about how bad the team is. And it's like, this is miserable. We wait all year long for football season to start.
Yeah, I'm not going to let anyone ruin it for us.
Yeah.
You know?
It's going to be over in a few weeks. Hopefully it's not over till February, but it could be over in the first round of the playoffs. And when it's over, we don't have Packer football for the remainder. I mean, you're talking, how many months would that be? It'd be what, February, March, April, May, June, July. I mean, you're talking 7-8 months before you get football again.
Yeah.
And during the season, we're just going to sit here and be miserable. We just can't do it, man. And you can get plenty of that content in other places, what I'm saying. That's not what's going to happen here. So most of the time, let's just say it that way. Greg S. in the chat says, Rasul Douglas was very on all the cornerback stats that you scrolled through last night. I trust Goot to make the right decision with Ja this offseason, though I also trust this show not to suck. I guess I'm just gullible. There you go. Very well said, sir. Very well said. And this cracked me up right here. Greg S. also in the chat said, Emilio told he's driving to see family, but really he's going out to pick this bad boy up. It just
oh, nice
Milwaukee decal on the side. Look at the race car bed in the front yard, boys.
Man, nothing says class like race car bed in the front yard, right? I love it.
Like
maybe some spare parts there too for Emilio. You know, he can always use parts when you're working on the car,
scrap
right?
That thing out, right?
Yeah.
His fiance going to come home and there's going to be parts to a race car bed in their dining room, right? I remember when I was a kid, there being a motorcycle in the living room in our trailer. I do remember that. That's a true story.
Oh, your pops couldn't leave it out in the rain, right? You gotta bring it inside.
No, the dog stayed out there, but the motorcycle came into the living room, man. Oh, I love it, dude. I wouldn't have been raised any other way. I'm just telling you. But yeah, like he said, though, Greg said, slap a couple Milwaukee stickers on that thing. That's a beast right there, boy. Just be careful, man. The ladies will be all over you driving that down the street. So, all right, Rail in the chat, who mentioned earlier there that he's a new Patreon member. He says, new on Patreon, happy to be here with the Chicago Bears coming up. And I know you don't care about stats, Clayton. What do you mean I don't care about stats? This is what's funny, Rail. For every person that says I don't care about stats, there's a half a dozen going, stats don't matter. It's played on the I'm okay. All right. I'm just going to sit back and not say anything. But he says, Clayton, but Swift has already eclipsed the total scrimmage, but he's about 100 yards shy from 1,000 yards rushing. DJ Moore has 950 total scrimmage yards and needs 120 receiving for 1K. I'm always for beating the Bears, but unless they somehow dominate the whole game, I don't see that happening. But with that being said, I also don't think Matt or Jeff, talking about Matt LaFleur and Jeff Hafley, would be happy with giving up a 100-yard rusher and receiver the last game in the regular season before we potentially have to play Philly or hope Mike McCarthy can help the Packers one more time in his coach tenure for us to play L.A. How do you feel we should attack this game overall as a team? You should attack this game, in my opinion, Real, the way you attack every other game. Every other game. And again, there's some people that are saying you should sit the starters. That's not me. You talk about killing momentum. You talk about adding rust. We've seen it with the Colts one year, man. They had one of the best regular seasons. This was back when Peyton was there, I think. They set all their starters. They got kicked in the first round. It was like, boy, you ruined your season by sitting everyone the week before.
Yeah. And this is an interesting spot for the Packers to be in. Normally, we're like, you look at previous playoff years, we're either like squeaking in, having to win to get in, get that last wild card spot. Your final, game or two of the season matters in order to get into the playoffs. Or we've seen runs where we have a bye, or maybe we're a 2 seed or a 3 seed. This is kind of interesting, kind of being teetering towards that kind of middle of the pack. We know that we're in. Are we going to be a 6 or are we going to be a 7? I think if you take your foot off the gas at all, even in a week 18 home game against the dumpster fire Bears of Chicago, you could really screw with the momentum of your football team. If I'm Matt LaFleur, I'm prepping these guys like I would for every other week this season and looking at this as just an important game as any other. And with that being said, though, I think you go up 3 or 4 scores, then you pull your starters. That's my opinion. But I wouldn't be sitting anybody unless we're talking about injuries, right? Hey, if Christian Watson's knee is still not feeling great after that little scare we had, then sit him. That's fine. But Jordan Love should start this game, right? Josh Jacobs should start this game. Our starters should be playing. And come on, guys, it's the Bears. If anything, just get these Bears players and their fans to just shut up. Let's just beat them twice. Let's just beat them twice and let them go back to their world of delusion where they think that they're going to win the North, Yeah.
And listen, they got booed off of their field, their last home game of the 2024 season. I want to put as bad a taste in their mouth as we possibly can the final week of the season.
Yeah,
I want them to question
that reminder of how much they suck.
Yeah, I want them to question every aspect of their roster. I want them to question every aspect of Caleb Williams. There's nothing I would love more than for us to come out and pick Caleb off 3 times because his big touchdown to interception ratio, although he's refusing to throw the ball more than 10 yards down the field, I would love to just see us come out, embarrass the hell out of them, and make them truly question whether they have the right quarterback or not. That's what I'd like to see happen. I think I might like to see that happen just as much as us creating momentum in the playoffs, if I'm being completely honest here. So, again, appreciate everybody in the Patreon group there. Last one from Randy Cleavers. He keeps it simple. What is going on with Ja? That was 7 minutes ago. Here's what's going on with Ja, Randy. He tore his PCL. He tried to come back too early and play on it hurt. Got 10 plays in Chicago. Re-aggravated it. He's had a scope now, and they had to do a clean out. So he is pretty much done until the Super Bowl if the Packers were to make the Super Bowl. So that's the latest on Ja. Is there anything I missed there, Tim? And by the way, I want to say the people that were kind of, there's some stuff going on behind the scenes and this and that, that is now to the wayside. No one's talking about that anymore, which is hilarious because their articles got read and they're good to go now. But Tim, anything else you want to add to this as far as Ja? Did I pretty much sum it up there?
Yeah, I mean, we could just check in with Ja and see what he thinks.
Things could be a lot worse. I could be a Bears fan.
There you go, pretty much. Now, Randy, if you're wanting us to expound upon Ja's future, we've been very vocal here. And I know here's the thing. I'm hitting on it because Randy asked, but I'm going to get messages going, would you stop talking about Ja here? Okay, I'm sorry. But here's the deal with Ja. I think that the Packers should and will go to him this offseason and talk about a restructure. People immediately say, you mean a pay cut? You can look at it that way, but also it means he's going to get more guaranteed money than his current contract has on the books, okay? So you could save cap room, give him more guaranteed money, and you can make it incentive-based as well so he can be the highest-paid corner in the league if he goes out there, plays in all 17 games, makes Pro Bowl, and whatever, leads the league in interceptions. You could add all these incentives or leads the team in interceptions, what have you. So I think that's probably the way to go about that as far as his future. Nothing's off the table, though. They may not touch the contract, reset, let him come back next year. They may restructure the contract. I can see that happen. I could see them looking to shop him if things have went bad, went sour behind the scenes, like some of the reporters are kind of hinting at. We'll see, man, But that's my take. If it were me and I was a general manager, I'd go to him and go, let's get you some more guaranteed money. We want you to be a Packer. Let's see if we can save us some cap room along the way. And if he bucks and he goes, no, talk to my agent, I don't want to do all that, then I'm okay with getting rid of him. I don't think he's this piece that we've absolutely got to have. I'm definitely not into that camp either. So, Tim, anything else there, man?
No, I would agree with that. And, there's a big part of me that wants to think that knowing the situation, knowing his health and availability these past couple seasons, I got to believe in my heart of hearts that Ja probably would be willing to restructure that deal.
I think so.
But if not, you're absolutely right. Then you pick up that phone call and you're not calling his agent. You're calling around the league and you're finding out who wants a corner and you're trying to get a trade done, because I would rather free up cap with a restructure than an outright cut. And I would hate to see that happen. I'd rather see Goody go out there and snatch a draft pick and maybe another weapon for us in trade if that's what happens. But I'm holding on to hope that job probably is a little more open to reworking that deal, because that was a huge, absolutely huge contract when he signed that. And he knows what this team did for him. And I got to believe that he's open to it.
Yeah. I think so too, and it sounds like he really kind of turned the page last year, after he and Matt LaFleur met. And then if you'll remember early in the season, him and Xavier McKinney starting at camp, right? They were just lockstep. And
Yep.
McKinney actually made a comment. I should have had that pulled up. Since we're on this subject already, let me pull this up. It was just a real quick comment that was made in the locker room. I want to make sure I give credit to the right person who had it here too. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, it's right here. Give me just a second, guys. I apologize. Should have been prepared for this, but I really didn't think we were going to be talking about Ja again. And it's okay, though. It's not a big deal. All right, here we go. This was Xavier McKinney in the locker room. I believe it was yesterday. And shout out to Dominique Yates, who put this on Twitter.
Shout out to that hoodie holding on for dear life.
It is, man. It is holding on for dear life. So Dominique Yates said, he just quoted Xavier McKinney. It says, Xavier McKinney on losing Jair Alexander for the rest of the season. Here we go.
It's been tough. Obviously, he's dealt with, this injury pretty much all year. And we wanted him to be back out there. But, injuries are a part of the game. So we understand that. We know that he's been working, or he was working to, try to get back. But it's like every time he was trying to, he would tweak it again. So it's a part of the game. And we just try to be with him as much as possible, try to make sure that he was good mentally, because we knew like how much it was, or at least I knew how much it was hurting him not to be out there with us, just having conversations with him personally. So, those were, the challenges that he faced. And, I think that we've seen, like, for us as a group.
All right, so if you need,
so there's the frustration, right? There's where the frustration came from. That's why he dodged Wieldy the other day. He seems a little chippy because we're about to enter the playoffs and this guy's not going to be able to play. I mean, it sucks, especially after trying to get back for so long. So, I mean, I think X summed it up right there, man. That's any frustration or any behind the scenes crap has got to be stemmed in the fact that, Ja's been trying week after week to get back out there and all it's done is screwed up the knee more apparently. So wishing him the best here as his off season starts a little bit early.
And in the back of his mind too, Tim, I know he's probably not reading all through social media, but you can bet he hears it at some point. You got some fans saying he's faking an injury. And what do you do? If you lash out at the fans, then the fans as a group, a larger chunk of the fans come out, who does he think he is coming at us? And now he's the bad guy, right? Yep. So he just stayed quiet. And when you stay quiet, now the rumblings are always something going on behind the scenes. Why hasn't he talked about it?
Yeah, there's not – you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. And to Jair's credit, I think you're right, that suspension last year and the soul-searching reality check that happened, you're starting to see him – he's really come into his own as a professional now. And he's still going to be the same Jair and bring that energy and that flair that we love. But I think he's a little bit more grounded now in the reality of being a veteran pro in this league. And he's not going to entertain the craziness at all. And I just hope he's back. I really do. That's my guy, man.
And again, Xavier McKinney, arguably the leader on this defense, the top leader on this defense, coming out and just telling everybody, like, bro, he's tried to battle back from this all year long.
Yep.
Right? Now, it's still a business transaction. So that's why I'm looking at it like can't be on the field. That's the tough part of the game, right? I understand the team going, all right, we can't do another year of if he tweaks it again, if something else happens, Sooner or later, you got to look up. And when a player's playing less than 50% of the snaps over a 3-year span, you got to go, maybe we need to make an adjustment here. Maybe we need to look at another option. I don't think that's cold-hearted. I think the business is cold-hearted. But that's why you won't hear me bash a player who holds out for a better contract, because they're trying to get that security, because we know at any moment this could happen and they're gone. So you got to try to see both sides. That's kind of how I look at it.
True.
Nick McSwain in the chat says, this is like the only place I can go have a level-headed conversation about the team. Appreciate that, Nick. I know it gets wild out there and others. It's just, I don't know. Again, we're all emotional fans. We just try to be a little more level-headed, and we suck at it. Like, that's what's crazy. Some are saying that we're the best at that, and I feel like we suck at it, because I can't tell you how many times I've went off the rails. Tim's gone off the rails. Jacob, you think Jacob's ever gone off the rails? Jacob's gone off the rails time or 12, right?
Don't put that name in my mouth right there.
It's funny though. Emilio's probably the calmest of us all. It seems like the Bullard stuff. Like
we'll be losing our minds, and Emilio will be like, "Well, actually, I just looked. They were, and he'll pull numbers. He's even keel, man.
Yeah, he really.
The youngest one on the show too is the most mature. Go figure.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And it's just like the way he handled Bullard. I'm watching the game and I'm really focused on it. Bullard's play. It's like, man, I got to look at the all-22, but I feel like he got burned all day. I think he was, I counted 55 yards and a touchdown that were just him losing in coverage. Right. That's a problem. Immediately. It's like Emilio, when he hears someone go after one player, he perks up and gets defensive. I love that about him. Love it. So, because it keeps it in check. There'll be, over time, we'll find out this was actually the case or this wasn't the case. But in the moment, let's simmer down now, as they used to say on what was that, Mad TV back in the day? Yeah. But Michael Herman says we have 5 games left. Smiling emoji. That's the
I love it.
I
love that attitude right there. Let's go.
Rail says Matt talked about the 2021 divisional against the 49ers, where we played starters for the first half of the last regular season game and had the bye because we were the 1 seed, then lost. Yeah, the whole first round bye thing, listen, you always want that. If you ask any coach, anybody, would you rather have a first round bye or have to play an extra game? They're going to say, give me the first round bye. But that's kind of a real thing too, man, sitting for a week, and these other teams, you just had a team that, God forbid, let's say you're the number 1 seed, like the Packers were there. It might have been in 2021. I can't remember. But let's say you're the number 1 seed and you just had the number 7 seed come in and knock off, let's say, the number 3 seed, right? Or whatever it is, number 2 seed, whoever they played. They're battle tested on the road. Yep. And you've been sitting for a week. Yep. That's a real thing. That's a real thing too. So it's just all how you want to look at it. Ron Sample says entering the playoffs on a 2-game losing streak isn't a very good option. That's a great
good point.
Because listen, you could play the starters and the Bears could beat them.
Yep.
And this is where people, we're 10-point favorites. I checked. We're going to get into the game probably tonight. We'll start to dive into it a lot, but we're 10-point favorites. But guys, this is the National Freaking Football League, the NFFL. Okay, like anything can happen. We beat them because TJ Slayton blocked an extra point, and you've already got a portion of a fan base that's creating this narrative. We're just going to blow them out. And there'll be the same portion of the fan base that if you don't beat them by 15 points, hell, look how bad we beat Seattle. And that portion of the fan base was still not happy, right?
Yeah.
I expect this to be a close game. That 10 points, again, this is the last game of the season. I think those guys are going to lay it all on the line out there. They're going to look to win.
And the Bears this is their Super Bowl. This is the Bears Super Bowl. Their whole year comes down to them trying to beat the Packers at Lambeau Field. Don't let it happen, guys. You don't take your foot off the gas, please.
Right. And again, the energy should be the same as any other regular season game, as if the season's on the line. The only difference is if someone is not 100%, rest them, right? If you got somebody like Evan Williams that's dealing with a quad, or you got Christian Watson, I don't want to see him on the field. It's obvious he's not fully healthy. You're not going to convince me he's 100% healthy, right? If you ask Christian, you want to go out there and play, he'll say, hell yeah, I guarantee you that. Same as those other players. Quay Walker, same thing, right?
Yep.
And that's just something we got to deal with. There's going to be rust from those guys, but you can't march them out there at 85, 90%, them tweak something and you miss them for the – that's the reason we're in this talk with Jair.
Yep.
If they had shut it down at the moment, went ahead and had the surgery, And again, hindsight's 2020. I'm sure there's more information that was uncovered as time went on, but you got to play this safe from a sense of the injuries. If you're healthy, you go out there and you pretend like this is the freaking Super Bowl on the line, though. That's the way I would look at it. So
absolutely.
Great point, Ron, though, man. The momentum's a real thing, no doubt. Joyce in the chat. But Clayton, like every year, the Bears say they have the greatest team. We're talking about in the offseason. Bro, let me tell you something.
The Bears still suck.
I challenge everybody to do this because this has brought me so much joy. When you see one of those crappy takes, it's going to happen. Free agency, you're going to see them. The draft, you're going to see it. It just blew me away how much of the national media actually played into it this year. If you see something like that, just hashtag, okay? Use a hashtag and put hashtag remember this tweet. Now, anything you see, do it. And then when you get to week 6 or 7, or in this case this year, it was like week 8 or 9 when they fell flat on their face. They couldn't do anything. The momentum completely tanked. You just go to your Twitter page and search hashtag remember this tweet, and you got all the receipts you need. And let me tell you, the Bears are the gift that keeps on giving.
Receivos aplenty, as you would say.
Yes, they are flowing like the geese of Capistrano. Like I'm telling you, make sure you do that because it will bring you great joy next season. I promise you that. So I'm just so glad Bill Belichick took the North Carolina job and didn't end up in Chicago. That's the one thing I was worried about. Ben Johnson, if he goes to Chicago, if I'm a Bears fan for a minute, I'm hiring Ben Johnson. That's me. To me, he looks like the next Matt LaFleur. But I would not be surprised if the Bears screw it up. So hopefully they don't get him. Now let's talk about kind of where the Packers are as a franchise. I just want to make sure we're not missing anything in here before we move on, before we turn the page. Yeah, we're good. We're good. And all right, so when you're talking about expectations, right? And again, going into the year, I said 10 to 13 wins. That's kind of how I seen the schedule. Our current roster, we're still an extremely young team, youngest team in the NFL. Jordan Love, that was his first year starting. I think he played pretty well, especially down the stretch. There's a thing called a sophomore slump. Guys, that doesn't just mean your second year in the league. People have got to stop thinking like that. Like, well, yeah, but he's been in the league for 4 years. He's not a rookie. I get you, he's not a rookie, but when you go out there and start and you're actually in the game, two things happen. You get to see how the player reacts to those live reps, right? That's an aspect that's huge. The other thing is teams are going to adjust, and they're going to be able to scout you now. They're going to look at the tape on you and go, here's what he does well. Here's what he does not so well. Let's make him play left-handed, that type of thing. So you get a full year of tape. That's why the sophomore slump exists. It's not that, oh, well, the player just ran out of gas, and in the second year he had to slow down and regroup. No, teams have all this tape on you, and they begin to, scout you and attack you from a specific standpoint. So with Jordan Love this year, if he does have a setback, it's not the end of the world, right? That's kind of how I was viewing this year going in. If I'm pretty sure we'd have to go back and pull the tape, and I don't know what episode it'd be, but we were asked about what's realistic expectations for Jordan. Mine was, you got to forget how much they put on the contract. Guys, the market is the market. Yep. If you want a starting quarterback, you got to pay that amount, or you can just continue to roll the dice, and hope you hit on a Sam Darnold in free agency where everything clicks. But with Jordan Love, I was like 25-10. Give me 25 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. That means you're throwing twice as many touchdowns as you are interceptions. You're going to keep your team in a position to win ball games. He's to me, he is our starting quarterback. Now, am I going to rule out the possibility that in 2 years he's not? No, because we've seen it too many times in the NFL. There's a chance that in 2 years from now we go, he is not the guy. He's regressed, and we can move on. That's a possibility. I personally would not put my money on that. But when you look at the team as a whole here, Tim, I want to draw a comparison. We did this last year. Remember we were talking about Brett Favre's first year as a starter?
What the hell is Brett Favre doing here? I'm in town to play the Dolphins, you dumbass.
Perfect drop. So here was Brett Favre's first 5 years with the Packers. Okay, he came in 1992. Obviously, only had 14 starts because Don Majkowski started the first 2 games, played in the first 2 games, started the third, broke his ankle, mangled his ankle. I think it was against the Bengals. And then Favre came in and played the last 14, right? The Packers that year went 9-7, okay? In 1993, Favre is now the starter. Hey, we got our quarterback, right? They went 9-7 and made it to the divisional round, okay? In 1994, the next year, they went 9-7 again, made it to the divisional round. In 1995, they went 11-5, made it to the conference championship. And then in 1996, they went 13-3 and they won the Super Bowl. So as great as Brett Favre is, and you guys know I love Brett Favre. I'm a big Brett Favre fan. He's one of the reasons why I became a Packer fan so quick in the early 2000s. Like, this dude is not going to miss a game. He loves his teammates. He's going to put it all on the line, right? It took him his 5th year being with the Packers to win a Super Bowl, okay? This is Jordan Love's 2nd. And when you compare their first year, Jordan Love's first year as a starter, he went 9-8, and they got beat, or they won the wild card round. They got beat out in the divisional round. Look at the comparison there, Tim. Like, seriously, his first year starting, full year as a starter, 1993, Brett Favre 9-7 divisional round. Jordan Love 2023 9-8 divisional round. Right, same amount of wins. Now 2024, this year, there's one game to play. Jordan Love's 11-5, and they're in the playoffs again. Look at that. So we're in year 1994 right now, and we're already ahead of the curve. That's kind of how I'm looking at that. Now, you could say that's the wrong way to look at it, Clayton. That's cool. We can agree to disagree. This is how I deal with expectations in my mind. I don't just assume a team, a player, a group, coaching staff is going to do something that's never been done before or is so rare, right, that I create unrealistic expectations. That makes sense, Tim?
Absolutely. Like Michael Herman says in the chat, watching those 93 to 96 teams rise from the ashes to greatness was magical. It sure was. Such a good point. You could literally you could feel the change in energy when you saw the kid from the Kill come out there and take over, because people always forget, the Magic Man, Don Majkowski, was that dude, before Brett got here. We hear about the Pack being back and we attribute that to Brett Favre, but you can't, gloss over the fact that Don Majkowski had us, playing good ball up until he got injured, and thank God we had Brett Favre come here and do what he did. It was a little shaky there at first. We all remember that first couple of plays when Brett came into the game. And, but it's true, like the energy shift and the excitement in the fan base, it just went through the roof at that point. And you could see, year after year, them knocking on the door, getting closer and closer. You knew it was coming. And sure enough, in 96, we got it done.
Yeah, definitely, man. Let's see here. Nick McSwain in the chat, kind of off topic, but he says, doesn't Watson have a bruise? Would playing more re-injure himself? ? Yeah, I haven't got the details on that specific bruise. I think that's what is that what Holmes is saying, or is he being sarcastic?
Yeah. No, that's so we've got an actual doctor.
Here we go.
So osteo, whatever word.
This is how I would say that, Tim. Bruises are really painful.
Osteo anything is bone. So bone bruises are very painful. So I think what Holmes is saying is it's not about like a re-injuring factor. It's about, how much that pain level is and how effective can you really be having a bone bruise like that.
Yeah. And everybody wants a player to play hurt, right? Until they play bad. And then it's, well, he shouldn't have been playing. Like that's immediately the focus gets shifted, right? So we'll continue this conversation into hour 2. For those of you listening on the pod, we will see you on the other side for that. We appreciate y'all.